What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. The Patriots on the short end of a 37-26 decision against the Baltimore Ravens. They dipped to 1-2. This is the aftermath. And in the aftermath of this one, we go to the Senator Phil Perry on the scene in Foxborough. What did you witness with the quarterback after the final play of the game, Phil?
Well, Calais Campbell fell on his leg. He obviously hops off the field, can't put any pressure on that left leg. Spoke to some reporters who were in the bowels of Gillette Stadium as he made his way back to the locker room. They couldn't see him because he was behind a curtain. They have that section of the stadium sort of blocked off, but they could hear him. He was screaming. He was in a lot of pain. We saw some of the images of him going down into the tunnel. It looked like he was really in agony getting back to the Patriots locker room. And then he wasn't able to speak to Patriots reporters clearly as he continued to be evaluated. But it sounds like, according to NFL Network, x-rays came back negative. Jeff Howe from The Athletic reporting that he'll have an MRI done on Monday to see the extent of the damage. But it sounds like a left ankle injury for Mac Jones, and we'll see where it goes from there. I can tell you, Patriots players in that locker room are praying that Mac Jones is okay. They know how important he is to their attack and their overall success this year. All
right. Now, the MRI, we've been around long enough. I know we're not supposed to speculate on injuries or pretend we're doctors, but I've had enough sprained ankles of varying degrees to be able to weigh in on it. A sprained ankle, even if it sounds like, hey, it's only a sprained ankle, that does mean stretched and or torn ligaments. That's what a sprain is, stretched or torn ligaments. Could be high ankle, could be low ankle, could be the inside, the inverted, could be the outside when you roll it outwards. I think it was a roll outwards situation for him. So I would guess at the very least, he's going to have a sore ankle for 4 to 6 weeks. How much he'll be able to put on it, we'll see. But, you know, it's a high degree or a grade 3 high ankle sprain. It's going to render him pretty useless for most of the week. So I would think that he would be questionable for Green Bay, despite the faces we saw from the AP images. I don't know, John, can you flash up some of these AP images? You know, you look at it here, obviously, a high degree of pain. Looks like might have stepped on a grenade. It was Calais Campbell. Be that as it may. Phil, there have been 3 Patriots games this season, and 2 of them, Mac Jones has been rendered incapable of speaking to the media afterwards. Is he injury prone?
I don't think so. I think he's just been hit. I mean, he gets drilled. He gets buried in that Miami game. He hurts his back. Somebody falls on him pretty awkwardly at the end of this game. No, I don't think he's injury prone. I think he's actually
pretty durable.
Pretty durable based on what we saw him go through last year. I mean, he took some shots last year.
Yeah.
To not miss any time after taking that shot that he took at the end of the Dolphins game, you know, so I don't think he's injury prone. It was clearly not a good game from him. And then to end it that way just leaves you with all sorts of different concerns. But I think there's a lot going on with this Patriots offense right now. Yeah, having gone up against a defense, Tom, that's
let's hit that.
Not very good. It's not very good there in Baltimore.
No, it's not. And I want to hit that. I do want to close off just making this global observation about the position. And this is another example of why the Patriots are on another level from where they've been for 2 decades. They had a quarterback who only missed after a torn ACL in 2008 and a 4-game suspension. Other than that, he never missed a game. He's probably going to play every single game at the age of 45 this year. So far, since Tom Brady was gone, Cam Newton wasn't able to play a game because he had COVID. He also dealt with some injuries. You remember back, of course, in 2016 when Brady had to be relieved because of his suspension for Deflate Gate. You had Jimmy Garoppolo making a grand total of 5 quarters before he was injured, and Jacoby Brissett barely made it a couple quarters before his thumb was almost pulled off. He, of course, played with a sprained thumb, God bless him, and played through the pain. But this is an example, Phil, of what you're looking at with the Patriots in 2022. They're joining the rest of the NFL in understanding how brittle and how much good fortune can enter into the quarterback position and the availability of the quarterback. So with that all said.
Well, we'll see, right? We'll see if he's available. So,
we'll see.
Yeah. You're right. It's just like every other team in the league. So I just hope, Tom, we don't look back at this year and we say, remember when they changed the offensive line coach and they made it Matt Patricia? And then, what do you know? The quarterback gets hurt, because I really don't think the offensive line, over the breadth of 3 games and all of those dropbacks that they've had to protect Mac Jones for, have really been egregiously bad. They were at times against Miami, but the last 2 weeks, and I know he took a couple of sacks. Actually, let me check it right here. He took 3 sacks against the Ravens. Didn't feel like it was the offensive line that really was the primary issue for them offensively. So, but I don't know. Yeah, do you look at it after the quarterback's dealing with the number of issues he's dealing with physically? You have to, I guess, look at the protection.
You do.
And wonder what's going on there.
Absolutely. And I think if you're a part of Mac Jones' coterie and the people around him, you're looking at the situation. Okay, Mac's 1-2. Again, I'm speaking from a viewpoint of the folks around Mac Jones. He's in his second year. How is he building in his second year on what he established as a rookie? How is the offense around him? How much is he growing and blossoming? How well protected is he? Is he in the best situation? And I think it's going to be hard for that to be explained, especially when he's going to be on crutches and one of those little scooter things for most of the week. And I might be wrong. Again, not a doctor. I still would put my chips on probably hobbled for a week. Bet he won't play next week. That's me. No diagnosis, no reporting. Obviously, context and information free. There will be no Mac Jones next week. All that said, and prayers up for his ankle. How did he play today?
Not well. 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. He rushes for his first touchdown. I think he, wasn't all bad pushing the ball down the field, but it really was sort of like bizarro Mac Jones in some ways, because you're throwing it down the field as often as he is, which has now been a trend. Okay, so that's 3 weeks of the year, and he's going to be near the top of the league. He's going to be inside the top 10 in terms of average depth of target. He's not going to be at Lamar Jackson level, but he's going to be way up there, which is not something we generally associate with Mac Jones, pushing it down the field. He was also just off in terms of missing targets, and it looked like making some decisions that were not Mac Jones caliber, right? Those are the strengths of his game: decision making and accuracy. And those weren't there, but he's out there running around like a crazy person, Tom, and he's scrambling for touchdowns, and those are things that we thought he couldn't do. And so he looked like a different player, both good and bad today.
Yeah, and that's the awesome conversation that you can have about Mac Jones this week is, okay, Mac Jones showed us a lot of stuff that we didn't really know he could do, to the good and to the bad. Is this a game managing, beautiful mind, accuracy laden quarterback who is going to manage your team up and down the field, or is he under different marching orders in 2022, which are press it, push it down the field, put your pedal down sometimes? We heard Bill Belichick speak in the post game about there were turnovers that came as a result of having to be aggressive. Do they have a mindset of we have to be aggressive in general? And is that good for Mac Jones, or is that counterproductive for Mac Jones? Yeah, the 3 picks suck. One of them was horrible. And I think the Devontae Parker one was pretty bad too when you look at the situational nature of it. It's at the time 31-26. I believe it was a 3rd down play. If you're going to make that throw, if it's not caught, it better bounce on the boundary line, the very end of the boundary line, or maybe into the first row of seats. It can't be underthrown so that there's room for a defensive back to make a play. Now, you could tell Mac Jones' immediate reaction was, hey, where's the push off? Hey, where's the holding? Hey, you know what? It's the NBA. Sometimes you're not going to get that call. I know it's the NFL. But you can't make a throw and then hope, well, I hope I get this call, because it was poorly placed. It was a wig and a prayer throw. But do the Patriots accept that throw, Phil, in 2022 and say, look, he's developing. He's in a tough situation. We're asking him to do some things that he's not familiar with. He made a shitty decision under the gun. We're not going to go out and kick rocks about it. Or do they, do Clockwork Orange and pin his eyes open and make him watch it 200 times as they would have with Tom Brady?
I don't know. I don't know how they're reacting to these mistakes in real time or in the week following, right? Because I think they are hoping that overall offensively they can just be more explosive. And so his aggressiveness is part of that. I asked Bill Belichick about that last week. How do you get somebody to walk that tightrope of trying to be able to create explosive plays, which you need to win games, but also taking care of the football. And so I think they're asking him to do more when it comes to pushing the ball down the field. But I would find it hard to believe that they would look at him and say, "Hey, Matt, good throw." He's under pressure. He's off his back foot. You lob it out of bounds there. It's 3 points, and it's an entirely different situation. Now they just became completely messy with the football
with their heads cut off.
And so maybe it doesn't end up mattering. Nelson Aguilar is still going to fumble. He's still going to throw that pick at the end of the game, maybe, if things end up playing out the way that they did in reality. But I don't think that's okay. And I heard Castle on the post game with you guys after the fact, and it sounded like he was pretty critical of that throw.
Yeah, he definitely was. And I guess I was being half an apologist for it and saying this is the nature of, again, you have a young driver. He's going to hit some curbs and stop signs and maybe run over a mailbox or two. It was interesting the number of times Darryl Johnson said on the telecast, wow, this is not Patriot football. I think we might have to reconfigure what our expectations are for Patriot football, because the last time we really saw it was 2018 in the stretch run when they went through the playoffs, and then into the Super Bowl. The 2019 team, finished on a low. The 2020 team lost games 24-3. Last year's team lost embarrassingly, if I'm not mistaken. Was it last year or was it the year before they lost to Sean McVay and the Rams 24-3? I think that might have been the COVID year. But we saw 12 men on the field today defensively. We saw a lapse. We saw 2 Isaiah Wynn penalties. We saw, a lapse on the first drive with a sack given up by the left-hand side of the offensive line. This is kind of standard fare. And I think this is somewhat of the entire team suffering for the pared down coaching staff. Let's revisit it again. When you have Dante Scarnecchia and Ernie Adams and Josh McDaniels, and your positional coaches are Brian Flores, and under him are guys like Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick and Brian Belichick and DeMarcus Covington and all the rest. And now you have a staff that's this much smaller. The staff itself is this much smaller and that much more inexperienced. Sometimes it's going to look like you just let a bunch of feral cats loose on the field at the end of the game. And it's going to be a little wacky because they're not on their details the way that they were previously. I'm not saying they won't get there, but if the quality control ain't the same as it was when Darryl Johnson's referring to, that's been ongoing, bud. Wrong? High? Unfair?
I don't think you're high, but I do think the one area where they actually were able to kind of maintain who they were for a long, long time was with turnovers. 2019, yes. I'm looking at it now. 2019, They actually led the league in turnover differential. That was not a good team, but at least they weren't shooting themselves in the foot time after time after time. 2020, the Cam Newton year, they were not nearly as good. But they still were in the positive. They were +3. So they're top half of the NFL, I believe, that year. 2021 last year, again, they're top 10 in the NFL in turnover differential. So that's basic stuff. That is foundational stuff that you should be able to do year to year to year, no matter how talented you are, how experienced you are, what your coaching staff looks like, in my opinion. And right now they're near the bottom of the league. They're -4 in the turnover differential category. So that to me is a huge difference. And maybe it's something they've got to live with if they want to be more aggressive through the air, but I can't imagine that they're happy with that. I can just tell you the players in the locker room know that they just lost their minds, essentially. Hunter Henry just called it straight up dumb. That, it's just that was his quote, dumb mistakes. So they know they could be better there. They should be.
And you look at the turnovers they could have been, and the Patriots have them too. I do understand that. There's occasions where they could have had picks made, etc. But Miles Bryant's a walking effort to give the ball away on punts the last 2 weeks, the first ones he's fielded. Mac Jones, hit a stealer in between the numbers last week. That could have been a pick. Kendrick Bourne fumbled today toward the end of the game, fell on it. Again, those things would happen with other teams. Pardon me?
The Patrick Queen near pick today. That's another one. Very easy.
I don't think that was the near pick 6 that folks thought. He undercut it, but I think he was going down anyway. Patrick was.
Oh, maybe.
He had a lot of junk to get through to get to the ball.
He should have caught it. I mean, it did hit him in the stomach. Yes.
But he was
You don't think
falling
so?
down. He was
Did it
getting
not hit him in the stomach?
Yeah, but he was tripping at the same time.
I don't know.
You're a better athlete than me. Okay, but
I
I've
guess
had a
so.
couple ankle sprains,
That's
and I'll
pretty
tell
clear. Yeah.
you. Okay. I've had ankle sprains, and the folks understand at the top that I was kind of making that clear. I've had a sprained ankle or two. Never had Calais Campbell fall on it. But the upshot is, Phil, and it's well taken. We could talk all about, the other teams would have had it too. The other teams are the other teams. The Patriots are a different standard. They're not that loose with the ball. They're not that carefree with it. They understand how to manage the football and make their decisions on special teams, and we're just not seeing it. Will it come, or is this a new, and as I was pointing out at the top of the show, different Patriots organization that you have to get used to? And while it's not Patriot football, it might be Patriot football circa 2020s.
I don't know. I think they're still just trying to figure out who they are. That's one of the topics that I harped on with players today. Their identity is up in the air. It's TBD. They know what they want to be, and they've seen signs that they can be that, which is grind it out, lean on the running game, blue collar type of football. And today, why not read into the performance and say, hey, that's what we can be, over 5 yards per carry. I thought they have run it well in spurts here. We talked about it a lot last week after the Steelers game. They brought back these power runs, and lo and behold, they're averaging 5.5 yards per carry on those. Maybe they should be doing more of that down the line. But Tom, is that enough? Can you be a successful team playing the game that way? I think there are teams that are trying to do that. I think the Lions are trying to do that. And I don't know how things ended up for them today, but they seem to be churning out yards and putting points on the board with that kind of style of offense. But when you're competing with the Bills and now the Dolphins in your division, can you be a winning football team with that as your blueprint?
And that's,
I'm not sure you can.
And that's probably the essence of why they're trying to pivot a little bit and press the ball down the field. Yeah, sure. We understand our strength is now what our strength was in 2018 and 2019 and 2020 and 2021. We had a back who just rolled out of bed and scored 15 touchdowns last year in Damian Harris. Now we have one who might be even better in Ramondre Stevenson, but that's all well and good, but it's not 1984 or 87. It's time to get chunk plays down the field. That's why I find this dichotomy of their offense. You're pointing out that the guys would like to play blue collar and they're averaging over 5 yards per carry. And that seems to be in their DNA, the way they're built. Yet they just devoted half the offseason, or actually all of the offseason, to trying to install an offense that can be more user-friendly for the quarterback and prolific and easier for the receivers. It's like they want to dress up and be something that they're really not. It's, they want to put on a suit, but you're still wearing shit kickers when you go to the Met Gala. You're not that guy. You're not that guy.
I just think what makes this difficult for us to parse is, listen, there's more risk in trying to become more explosive, right? The Jameis Winston corollary. No risk it, no biscuit, baby. And that is true. But I think every time Mac Jones makes a mistake now, we're going to sit here and wonder, well, is he being told to do that?
Uh-huh.
Does he feel like he has to do that? Is there pressure behind the scenes for him to do that? Or is that just on him in the moment, making a decision that he shouldn't make? Pulling the trigger when he shouldn't pull the trigger, instead of taking an incompletion, throwing it out of bounds, forcing it into coverage because he feels like he has to, because they feel like they have to be this other thing in order for them to be successful. And there's plenty of evidence that you do have to be that in today's NFL in order to be successful. So that to me is where it gets hard. Do you put it all on the coaching staff? Do you put it on the quarterback in the moment? How does that blame pie get divvied up? And through 3 games here, I would give more to the coaching staff, because I think a lot of it is new. And I think he is being told to do certain things that maybe he's not completely comfortable with. But clearly there are some throws there today where if you're Matt Castle or you're anybody else who knows how to play the position, it sounds like you should know not to make that throw. So that's what's going to be hard for us to balance all season long, I think, is we're looking at Patricia and Judge and Belichick, or are we looking at Mac Jones
Right.
with some of these backbreaking
Yeah.
mistakes.
I mean, I exactly. I walk out of the game and resoundingly, anyone who wants to can point to Mac Jones' game and say that's why they lost. And one would agree, but was he put up to it? Was he put up to the job? Was he just a tool of the man? And this is the outgrowth of what they've created. And at some point, he'll be the guy who can hit those downfield shots to Devontae Parker that yielded 156 receiving yards today, and also winnow out the picks on throws to Devontae Parker. Can they do that? Will he do that? Is this part of the growing pains? I sometimes speculate it is, which means I am absolving him of that. And I'm also absolving the coaching staff by saying, well, they want to be that. Okay, it's going to take some time. I'm willing to watch and enjoy the football game as they go up and down the field and score 53 points if the outgrowth is improvement down the road. That's why it sucks to be 1-2 if you're a fan of a football team or if you're on that football team. And they're probably going to be 1-3 or favored to be that if Hoyer is your starting quarterback at Green Bay next Sunday. But it's the nature of the business. They weren't going to the Super Bowl anyway, most likely. And if this is a year to get right and fix things, well, then so be it. Just try not to fracture the quarterback's leg on the way through.
Right. Well, and I would say, not to put a shine on this loss because it's a game that was winnable. You were up 20-14 in the second half, and you give up however many it was unanswered. Was it 17 unanswered? And give the game away essentially on both sides of the ball. Neither side is absolved here. We're talking a lot about the offense, but defense just couldn't stop Lamar Jackson, which that's a difficult challenge, I know, but man, it felt like the guy did whatever he wanted in the second half on the ground. Yep. And so you look at this and you say there's plenty more they could have done well, but I think, Tom, people probably, if you had told them on Sunday morning that the Patriots would score 26 points against the Baltimore Ravens and they actually would have had an opportunity to score 30 or more pretty easily, you would say, wow, really? They only scored 24 points in the first two games against defenses that are just kind of okay. Yeah, well, even if they lose, if they put up that kind of performance, we'll take that. So that's what they were sniffing today. Obviously, mistakes take points off the board, but in terms of explosiveness, they clearly have shown some progress there from weeks 1 and 2 to week 3.
Yeah, and that's in the wake of every game. I think people, at least some fans and or media folks, feel obliged to go to the whip and say this guy sucks and that guy's got to go and this guy's never going to amount to anything. But I tend to, over the time covering it, I look at the product and whether it's getting better or getting worse. And my God, I couldn't have imagined a 26-point outburst by this team with that many touchdowns. With Mac Jones, and this was what's tough about Mac Jones' performance today. He had some horrendous ideas, but he also profited by some on-the-move, on-the-go, reflexive, spontaneous, make-a-play ideas. He also threw with great touch on a number of balls down the field. I mean, we were having a conversation last week, Phil, predictably. Is Mac Jones still the guy? And yeah, last Monday he was still the guy. And this Monday he's still the guy. And he's going to be still the guy for the foreseeable future. He ain't your problem. And last question, because we haven't done the D, and I want to get you back out of here. But
can I ask you really quickly first?
Yes, sir.
Because I have to come out with my grades tomorrow, and I promise I will not be swayed one way or the other. But I would like to ask you what you'd give Mac Jones for a grade today, because it sounds like you're a little bit torn on the overall performance.
I'm going to give him a B-, and if it wasn't for that end zone pick, I'd have given him a B+, because they would have gotten a field goal out of it, and it would have been 31-29. And there would have been how much time left?
Let's check.
Shit. Sorry. I should have checked that before I put you on the spot.
Nope. They threw that pick with, it was 9 minutes left.
9, yeah. Then they got the ball back again with 6. And they were down, whatever they were down. Yeah. Not good enough. Not good enough.
In the B's.
Yeah, I'd say B-. If it wasn't for that pick.
Listen, I think if people out there know about ESPN's QBR stat, I won't hammer you with this, but basically it's an advanced analytic that tries to tell you what percentage of games a team would win based on that quarterback's performance in a given game. And his QBR, even though he's, his quarterback rating was, I think, in the 60s on this one. Yeah, 62, which isn't great. His QBR was 52, which isn't horrible. It tells you your team would win just over half their games if your quarterback played the way Mac Jones did every single week. So I find that interesting. I think they look at those down the field throws.
Yeah.
They look at the turnovers as sort of, I think turnovers are sort of not a luck stat, but they're hard to predict. They're a little volatile. And so some of the analytics sites will tell you, don't worry about the turnovers so much.
Right.
Well, they lean on the other stuff.
Which is why we've lampooned QBR over the years, and the number of people who will talk about air yards, because sometimes air yards don't matter, but the Patriots seem to be embracing air yards in 2022. The question we need to get to is, did the Patriots defense get pantsed and embarrassed and exposed? Or was this just, hey, man, it's Lamar Jackson, relax?
It's a little bit of both. And the reason I say that is because every player in there felt as though they had a good plan for Lamar Jackson on the ground. And there were a couple of snaps where they weren't as disciplined as they needed to be. And so those are challenges that are unique to facing Lamar Jackson. The more glaring issue to me, Tom, is some of the decision-making defensively that I question, only because I wrote about in the preview just how effective Lamar Jackson had been against the blitz coming into this game. First in the league in yards per attempt when blitzed. First in the league in quarterback rating this year when blitzed. And according to Next Gen Stats, Lamar Jackson was blitzed on almost 49%, almost half of his dropbacks on Sunday. He threw 3 touchdown passes on Sunday against the blitz, and his numbers are just continuing to skyrocket when defenses bring additional pressure. They did it a lot, it looked like, in the red zone, and he beat him for touchdowns. They went 5 for 5 in the red zone today. So that's the part of it that I question. I think they're going to be an okay defense, but what was up with that, with all the blitzing against Lamar Jackson when it wasn't working? And it hasn't worked through 2 weeks this year.
Excellent question. And it's really funny because you remember with Josh Allen last year, the Patriots, the first time around didn't. Is that correct? In the one that both of the losses, in the first loss, they didn't try and get after him. And then the second game they did, and in neither one did it work. And they are, cut from the same cloth in a lot of ways. I mean, Lamar is more of a design run guy than Josh Allen is at this juncture, but these are guys you just have to throw the kitchen sink at and just keep pushing buttons and pulling levers until something works. And it kind of did in the first half. But, this would be a Steve Belichick question, and maybe we can get him this week. I'm not sure which coordinators we get, but Steve or Mayo would be deft in explaining this, I'm sure, Phil.
No question. It stands out to me too, Tom, because they were on to their third left tackle, and it looked that way with the way Dietrich Wise performed in the first half. 3 sacks in the first half. I mean, he's just working poor Daniel Falele, who's about 400 pounds, 6'8". He's a monster human being, but he's not really designed to pass protect. He's just not that kind of athlete. And so I assumed that would play into the Patriots' hands because you wouldn't have to blitz to get pressure on Lamar Jackson. And yet they continued to do it. So that was curious to me.
All right, Phil, let's put a cork in this now. Patriots lose 37-26. This has been the Aftermath. Of course, you can catch the breakdown with Phil Perry and Ted Johnson on Monday on all your NBC Sports Boston channels and on YouTube and on the computer. Like, we'll have digital stuff. You know what, Tom, just shut up and end the pod. See you.